Who are the players you should be targeting based on their price points and return on investments for DFS in Week 13? Whether you're playing FanDuel cash games, DraftKings tournaments, or PrizePicks, it's time to break that down, as well as the injury updates you need to know for Sunday and Monday games here on Locked On Fantasy Football.
Our Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer, and I'm not doing this. I'm writing about NFL and fantasy football for sportingnews.com. We got one game in the books. Hope it worked out for you with the Bills and Patriots. Definitely a decent start to the week. Now, there's not much to say there. We're going to dive in here to our FanDuel and DraftKings recommendations here, whether you're playing cash games or tournaments. We look at FanDuel cash games, DraftKings tournaments, and of course, we look at our PrizePicks picks of the week. We'll have that in our final segment on today's show. We'll also look at the injury updates you need to know there that are affecting what's going on with the games on Sunday and Monday. Yeah, some of the things that we're definitely tracking from what we know from the practices here ahead of the designations that will come out later on Friday. So we'll have that for you as well. So pretty action-packed show here as we close the week on Locked On Fantasy Football. Before we do that, I got to tell you that this episode, today's show, is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline, as you covered the season, with more props and odds and lines than ever before. BetOnline, that's where the game starts. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. We're free and available to you on all platforms wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's break down some of the players I'm targeting here on FanDuel and DraftKings. And let's start with FanDuel cash game for quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. I like that number quite a bit. Maybe not priced as high as he should, coming off a hot game at home against the Ravens, playing the Lions' putrid pass defense here in the contained environment at Ford Field. $7,500 for Trevor Lawrence. Love that price point right in the middle where I think I can get good return there, not to pay up totally if I'm looking for a player that is going to please what we're looking for in DFS this week. So cash games, I think he's going to be pretty solid. I think you'll get a pretty high floor from Lawrence. I don't know if the ceiling will be as high because, again, the running game might be a little bit more effective for the Jaguars. So something to keep in mind here, but I do like that number, 7,500 FanDuel. Now, in DraftKings, it's a no-brainer. Jimmy Garoppolo, what a number this is, 5,700. I think they're going to have to pass more. Their running game is a little bit banged up here. The Dolphins are capable of being passed on away from Xavier Howard. The numbers can be put up here. The weapons are too good with Deebo Samuel and George Kittle not to go in that direction. And Brandon Ayuk and Juwan Jennings. There's just too much there. Jimmy Garoppolo is kind of the ringleader, point guard of all that. So I think you're going to have a game very similar to what he had with the Arizona Cardinals on Monday night in Mexico City. I think it's also high volume potential to go back and forth against the Dolphins, a little bit of resistance that we didn't get from the Saints, who didn't score a point last week. So Jimmy Garoppolo can put up the numbers for sure. Now, if I'm going to pay up for a quarterback, I'm going to, of course, look at that Chiefs-Bengals game, and I'm going to just go to Joe Burrow here. And the numbers are going to be pretty high. He's going to throw all over the Chiefs. I think he has 3 touchdowns easily in this game. I think Mahomes could also have 3 touchdowns, but Burrow is where I'm targeting if I'm going more expensive. If I'm going a little bit bargain basement, I'm looking at Kenny Pickett. I think he can have his best game of the season, do a little bit of running, get some multiple scores there in Atlanta. Again, another contained environment there indoors against the Falcons. So in the middle, I do like Lawrence and Garoppolo, but if you're going up, go for Burrow. If you're going a little bit down, go for Kenny Pickett this week. Now, that's really on either site that you can look at based on their price points. Now, let's go to our picks here at running back. Let's first start with our FanDuel combination here, and you just have to look to the same game. Aaron Jones lit up the Bears in Week 2 in Lambeau Field. He's coming off a nice game. He's the healthier of the two backs. He had a little bit of quad issue for A.J. Dillon. Jones has also been banged up with the shin and glute injury, but he's been Aaron Jones. He's the lifeblood of what they do. He's involved in the passing game. He can run. However you look at it, passing, running, he can put up the numbers this week. For 7,400, yeah, on FanDuel, great little mid-tier price for a guy that can produce like a feature back this week. Same thing for David Montgomery. Khalil Herbert soon to be returning here, but the Montgomery backfield has been pretty good. He's been fruitful, even with the Bears being up and down offensively. Otherwise, he's getting involved in the passing game, which is good to see. And now without Darnell Mooney, they're probably going to have some more checkdowns. So slide into the DM with Monty over Mooney this week with Mooney out, and they're going to have to throw. And so, again, the Packers secondary is pretty tough downfield. We saw the backs get involved against them pretty well. So I do like it. And the Bears, they should trickle down and get some of this Eagles rushing production from last week. And if Justin Fields returns, that might cut into Montgomery a little bit. But if Simeon plays, they're going to have to rely a lot on Montgomery. We saw the production there against the Jets last week. 7,000, very good price in relation to Jones. Now let's go to DraftKings. And this player was a little bit priced down. The Texans have shored up a little on run defense, but I still think you can bang away on them. And Deshaun Watson coming back is going to help because it can open up the downfield pass game. Nick Chubb at 8,000. Chubb smash, Chubb roll here. Chubb is going to set up Deshaun Watson for some big plays, but I think this is a Chubb centerpiece game against the Texans. He had great success against them last year. 8,000. He's trying to get that rushing lead back from Josh Jacobs, so he's motivated here. The Chubb at 8,000, that is a great price here for what the return could be. You could see it easily jump into the 20s this week for him. And again, you're looking for 3x, you can get 24 points or more from Nick Chubb for sure. I think there's a good chance he scores 2 touchdowns. And the same I do like for Aaron Jones, well priced here, well underpriced, 6,900 here. And again, the Dillon usage may be contained a little bit. Jones has owned the Bears in the past, so I love that price. And then you can offset paying for Chubb and maybe looking for some bargains there elsewhere in your roster. All right, at wide receiver, let's go to FanDuel. 8,100 for A.J. Brown. Love it. I have him as the top on the board, so I would say he would have a good return on investment here with a potential blow-up game. He's kind of very quiet or he blows up, and I think this is a potential blow-up game for A.J. Brown. Keenan Allen is going to give you a little bit of consistency working over that Raiders secondary this week. You look at Deebo Samuel here, also great price. You don't get Deebo Samuel for under 7,000 very often, 6,800. Again, he's banged up as well. He's got the hamstring, he's got the quad, but he could run a little bit more this week with his backfield situation being a little bit cloudier. They could throw him well inside away from Xavier Howard. So however you look at it, again, it's kind of like Aaron Jones. You can find multiple ways to get to this big-time production, including scoring this week. So like Deebo Samuel very well at 6,800 also lets you get Brown on the other side. Now, with tournaments, a little bit of a pivot there from Allen and Samuel. Those guys have high floors. A.J. Brown has the high floor and the high ceiling. So 7,800, we're going to go with him on DraftKings as well. There, A.J. Brown, I just think is going to be motivated. It's one of those revenge games that's a real revenge game. And he didn't like, he's a good young receiver. Why did the Titans trade him? Well, he should like what he's doing with the Eagles, but still, it's got to be a little disrespect there that his initial team didn't want to pay him. Garrett Wilson, 5,300, like him to keep hot here. So maybe a bit underpriced in relation to him and getting going with Mike White. He'll be the guy that gets most of the volume, at least 8 to 10 targets in that game. The production is going to be there against that Vikings secondary. And he's fast, and we know Patrick Peterson has been good, but he can also be pretty slow. Christian Watson, go Al Lazard, too, if you're looking for the multiple touchdowns, but Watson is the guy that gives you the big plays and the multiple touchdown potential. He's only at 5,200 again. Lets you pay up for A.J. Brown as well, and Watson is not a bad play at all. We saw if there's something there with Watson, he seems to be quarterback proof for the big plays with Rodgers and Jordan Love at this stage. George Kittle, again, I want to attach myself to the 49ers. I don't want to quite pay up for Travis Kelce because it really handcuffs you at other positions here. And there's some weeks where you just say, okay, Kelce's going to lead my team. But I look at this and I look at Kittle, 6,200 in FanDuel, 5,000 on DraftKings. Good prices for Kittle, however you slice it here. Dolphins do give up tight end touchdowns here. It's a similar offense, we know. So George Kittle is kind of the hyper version of Mike Gesicki. He can do a little bit more stretch the field. I think he'll be much more involved than he was last week. They didn't need him much against the Saints. The Saints are pretty good against the tight end. The Dolphins are not. So good luck with that Dolphins safety and linebacker core slowing down Kittle. So I love it. 6,200 on FanDuel, 5,000 DraftKings, and I don't have to pay up for Kelce or Andrews this week. All right. Finally, the defense. I'm also going to one defense that I like. I'll pay up a little bit for the Steelers at 4,200 on FanDuel. It's okay. I think the Steelers are going to come through and have that Steelers-like game with multiple sacks, really a forced turnovers from Marcus Mariota. They're coming off a big performance against Matt Ryan, so I like that price. I like them actually before, but I like them a little bit more now. And then on DraftKings, only 2,600. So the Steelers an absolute bargain there. Plug and play, no brainer there for you on that site. So there you have it. Those are your FanDuel, Cash Game, and DraftKings recommendations of the week there to help build your lineups here ahead of the week. Now, in our next segment, we will look at the injury updates. Then we'll get into our picks of the week. And we said on Thursday show that PrizePicks is our title sponsor here on Locked on Fantasy Football with our DFS games. And we will give you our PrizePicks picks of the week. Just hold on to our final segment here. But you know how to get in on PrizePicks? Well, it's pretty easy, and they're going to give you ways to get in very easily. It's a daily fantasy made easy. You just make the entries based on player projections. They go more or less than what PrizePicks has available. Then you're going to cash in, and you can get up to 10 times the money. I love the format. It's so easy. You just look at the numbers, see what you like about it, go more or less, and you're good to go here. And it's exciting because we have a lot of exciting games to pick from, including that Dolphins 49ers game, the Bengals Chiefs game. So a lot of stuff with Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa and Jimmy Garoppolo. So very exciting games to go with. And you can get a piece of those games here by playing on PrizePicks. You just pick 2 to 5 players. They go score more or less than their PrizePicks projection. You can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people, just you versus projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. That includes not only NFL, but NBA and NHL, they're in full swing here. College football still have a big weekend ahead. College basketball for men and women. We also have a big tournament here in Qatar called the World Cup. So that's out there that you can also get into as we get into the knockout stage there of the World Cup. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals. And PrizePicks is currently operational in more than 30 states in Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up to play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match worth up to $100. All right, we will continue the show here on Locked On Fantasy Football in a moment. Before we do that, I get to thanks for making us your first listen today. For a second listen today, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most, the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. All right, it is the middle segment of our show. That means we'll look at the injury updates you need to know. Lamar Jackson battling a quad injury, but he'll be good. It's a tough matchup against the Broncos this week. Justin Fields, we'll see about the pain tolerance. Closer to playing, I think, this week. But again, if not, it's tough to trust Trevor Siemian in that matchup. He's battling that oblique injury. Aaron Rodgers said early in the week that he's going to play through the ribs, and he will here. Derek Carr is fine with the back injury against the Chargers. More Bryce Perkins there set to go against the Seahawks. Matthew Stafford not going to return anytime soon. Garoppolo and Tagovailoa having a few issues, but they're fine here. Ankle injury for Tagovailoa, Garoppolo with a knee, but their pocket passers doesn't affect them too much this week in their production that we're looking at. There, Ryan Tannehill getting further removed from that ankle injury being an issue. He'll be good to go. Not a great matchup against the Eagles. J.K. Dobbins, he's looked good in practice here, but we'll see if they activate him. They need him. Gus Edwards has been okay. Kenny Drake has disappeared, so we'll go there. Joe Mixon trending here to being good to go for the Bengals, so we'll watch that. And I thought Samaje Perine pivot there. Latavius Murray is going to play with that wrist injury against the Ravens in a revenge game for Latavius Murray. We said the shin and glute for Aaron Jones, quad for A.J. Dillon. They'll be out there. You'll have Damian Pierce having more of the backfield with Rex Burkhead concussed here. Travis Etienne, the foot was a concern, but he's looking pretty good here. They said he was cleared to return medically in that game last week against the Ravens. So I think you can expect a normal thing from Travis Etienne there. Jerick McKinnon, you're not going to go there with the Chiefs anyway, the hamstring injury. You're looking at Josh Jacobs. The calf was a concern. There was a little bit of panic that he wouldn't play last week, but we know he played, and we know he blew up against the Seahawks, maybe just getting a little bit of maintenance here to get him going. Again, that's a high volume game, but Chargers matchup smash it this week. Raheem Mostert, we'll see about him, but I'm not going to trust him or Jeff Wilson Jr. in this matchup revenge game against the 49ers. Here, Michael Carter, not looking good for him, so you'll see a little Bam Zonovan night again, or Zonovan Bam night again with Ty Johnson in this matchup as James Robinson. We'll see if they even want to activate him. We have Najee Harris, see about what he can do here with Jalen Warren, the hamstring injury on the way back. It could be a messy committee here without Harris. We'll track that. Christian McCaffrey, always a little bit concerning with that knee injury. We'll see what happens there. Elijah Mitchell's not going to be available, so we're going to maybe Jordan Mason having a big role in that game. Looking at Antonio Gibson, still there with the foot injury, but I'm probably going to be working behind the red-hot Brian Robinson Jr. Now, looking at wide receivers, looking at Chase Claypool, he is battling a knee injury, but I don't love the matchup against the Packers because Jair Alexander is probably going to go after him. Jamar Chase ready to go with a hip injury here. Michael Gallup is battling illness, but he'll go there for the Cowboys. Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, what else is new? I'm just not trusting anything in these Broncos. Ankle and hamstring for those guys. Just forget it. Romeo Doubs, encouraging signs. We'll see if he can go here. And again, don't forget about him cutting into Watson and what they can do with Lazard. But hopefully that we can not worry too much about Doubs and they won't rush him back. They do have a bye week next week, which is also helpful. You have Zay Jones playing through that chest injury, as we mentioned. Juju Smith-Schuster has that illness. Kadarius Toney, hamstring. Marcus Valdez shoulder. Justin Watson knee. So that's why I like Sky Moore this week. He's a fully healthy guy that you look at for Patrick Mahomes. Mike Williams, another lost game with him this week with the ankle injury there that we're looking at. Devonta Smith will be out there with his growing injury for the Eagles. Deebo Samuel seems like a different injury, but he keeps getting in limited work. That's fine to get him going here. So trending the hamstring for the quadriceps, but still good to go. David Njoku going to keep playing with that knee injury and take advantage of the return of one Deshaun Watson this week. We'll see about the Colts. I know we had a nice performance by Jelani Woods, but new injury for him, so I'm going to avoid that situation altogether. Daniel Bellinger getting close for the Giants with that eye injury, maybe one more week. And then we look at Logan Thomas going to play through that rib injury there for the Giants. So not a lot of injury concerns there. I mean, other than the guys that we know are out for the season, the Breece Halls and Darnell Mooney's, Javonte Williams, those type of players, really not a lot that we're navigating through, which is great. Here's not as much attrition there affecting fantasy football here as normally would be here in week 13. A lot of things up in the air, a little bit more clear cut or kind of straight up here for this week. Now, we will finish the week and the show here on Locked On Fantasy Football with our look at our prize picks of the week. This episode is brought to you by Audible. Audible has got a lot of new great podcasts. We've told you a lot about Block Forever with Ryan Khalil, where there's one that is pretty marquee here. Think Like a Champion. It's now available wherever you get your podcasts. Think Like a Champion is a brand new podcast from Russell Wilson at Audible. So we know it's been an interesting season, not what Russell would like as a champion there on the field there, and we're still trying to learn more about his grind and path to greatness. So, look, I think there's a lot of assumptions made about Russell Wilson. Well, he can set the record straight here. He's got his co-host Harry Wilson and the late Trevor Mowad. So it's a tribute to him as well. Digs into high performance athletes, artists, and leaders, push the boundaries of their potential. You hear from great champions, Von Miller and Tim Tebow, what made them tick when they're winning championships there. Each episode features interviews with Olympic medalists, NFL stars, and business leaders, so people that are winning in all types of life as champions. Hosts will swap stories and share proven mental techniques that have gotten the world's most elite performers across the finish line and beyond. It is available for free on Audible or wherever you get your podcasts. Head over to Locked On Presents for a sneak peek of Think Like a Champion, or catch the full series available anywhere you get your podcasts. Available everywhere now. Audible, get in the game. All right, it is time to close the lineup Friday in our final episode of the week. Now, a little programming reminder for you. I am going to be taking the Monday off here. I need a little bit of personal day, so I'll be missing Monday's show, but we'll be back there. So we'll have some of the quick reaction, compress that into our Pickup Tuesday show ahead of Week 14, the waiver wire look there. So we won't have the reactions as we usually would coming out of the Sunday games here on Locked On Fantasy Football, and we'll get into a little bit in detail when we mash it up a little bit with Pickup Tuesday. So don't worry, we'll break down things that we saw on the field, and we'll have a comprehensive look with the Monday night between the Saints and the Buccaneers also in the book. So no show on Monday, but don't worry, we'll give you the waiver wire advice you need, and we'll be back to our regular show schedule there on Tuesday on Locked On Fantasy Football. Now let's finish this Friday edition of Locked On Fantasy Football with our picks of the week. And some things happened last week. The Jeff Wilson Jr. thing, I don't know what happened there. And they stopped running, and it was weird. And I didn't get it at all with what the Dolphins were doing. They pulled Tua Tagovailoa early. They put in Skylar Thompson. It was a weird whole coaching decision by Mike McDaniel when it was right there to run over the Texans. So let's try this again. We do have some good picks there. We did have a lot of good with the quarterbacks. We've had a lot of success with those yardage more or less numbers, and we usually go more here because we like to be positive, and the more is a little bit easier for us to navigate through there on PrizePicks. You can go less if you want, but I like the more because then it's for more points, more excitement, and you're rooting for that. And once you're past that total, you're good where you're not sweating things as much there. So let's start a quarterback here. Jalen Hurts, the number for him on PrizePicks, 225.5 passing yards. Again, we've been kind of going after this. You cannot really run on the Titans, and that includes Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders. You got to throw on them. A.J. Brown, we've talked about that. Devontae Smith, the great matchups against the secondary, this offensive line holding up against that pass rush of the Titans. So I would throw quite often. They also could be a negative game script if Derrick Henry goes off in this game. So keep that in mind. So I like 225.5. I think he gets to 250 here to clear that for us for Jalen Hurts. Another MVP candidate here in reality is Patrick Mahomes, 300.5. That seems like a big number, right, against the Bengals? I'm going to go more with Patrick Mahomes as well. It's 300. He's a 300 king here. He went 320 last week, and the Rams didn't provide that much resistance in that game at all. Mahomes is going to throw. It's also tough to run on the Bengals with DJ Reader back here, the defensive tackle, and the Chiefs are not interested in running as much. Really, they like to open it up and chucking around. And you also have Joe Burrow on the other side. It's going to create some shootout potential here, back and forth between Mahomes. 300.5, going over that. If it was anybody else, I would be a little bit worried about the 300, but not with Patrick Mahomes this week, especially with Burrow and a potent offense on the other side that's going to make Mahomes keep throwing in that game. And there could be a negative game script as well there for him, but the Bengals, they were playing with the lead, and Mahomes needing to rally the Chiefs late. All right, let's go to our two running back and really rushing yards picks of the week. It's a little bit hard with Lamar Jackson, tough matchup. Not sure what we're going to get from Justin Fields, no Kyler Murray. So we're going to stick with running backs this week. And Nick Chubb, 90.5, big number, but it's the Texans. They're not going to mess around. They're going to feed Nick Chubb the ball. That's what the Browns do. They also can dominate with their offensive line here. So that was concerned. I mean, the Dolphins lost two key players there, but this offensive line, you look at Joel Bitonio, Wyatt Teller, Ethan Potchich, Jedrick Wills. It's just a dominant group up front, and they can roll over the Texans here in the running game and open things up for Deshaun Watson. So 90.5, again, I think Watson could have a game where it's like 200 and maybe 3 and some rushing yards, and there might be concern about that. But Chubb is still the bread and butter here, and I don't think they're going to run Watson too much in his first game back here. They want to get his feet wet a little bit before they let his feet take off. I also like David Montgomery, 68.5. Now, the reason I don't like Aaron Jones much here this format is because I don't know how Aaron Jones' numbers are going to come. And that's the tricky thing with like a Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, those type of players where you like scrimmage stuff here, but David Montgomery, 68.5. I mean, that is a number that he should clear easily against Packers. He could even do it even if he was splitting carries or Fields was in there. So that's a pretty foolproof number, I think. It's 68.5. We like it. The game script, I also don't think it's going to get totally away. I think the Bears can move the ball on the Packers, especially if it's Fields. And their Fields might actually hurt Montgomery again because he can run a little bit, and steal some of those numbers. But I love the matchup so much here against the Packers after they gave up 363 yards. It's hard to recover. Even if they give up half that, that's looking great for David Montgomery this week. A.J. Brown, 70.5. Yeah, we're going to go after that as we transition to wide receivers and the receiving yardage here. Going more for 70.5 for A.J. Brown. Was quiet again last week. I think they're going to give the squeaky wheel some grease, especially he's going to squeak about this matchup quite a bit. So 70.5 more for him. The guy that exploited that matchup against the Titans last week, I think he'll do that to the Chiefs this week. 70.5, a little bit more manageable number than Jamar Chase just getting back from the injury. So T Higgins 70.5, AJ Brown 70.5. My two favorite yardage mores here for wide receivers this week. I'm also looking at Keenan Allen. Again, we talked about that at the 62.5. I think he gets to 80 yards receiving at least against the Raiders this week. So I like that quite a bit. Christian Kirk, 60.5. Very quiet last week. Was a Zay Jones week. But we know that the Lions just gave up a big game to Isaiah McKenzie. They struggle in the slot. They don't have a lot of depth at corner whatsoever. So 60.5 over that. And our final guy, another guy we like in DFS, it's all correlated, right? If you like someone in DFS there, you're going to like DFS there. It translates to PrizePicks as well. So Garrett Wilson at 53.5. That's a low number considering the Vikings give up a lot of passing yards. He should have a big percentage of what Mike White does in that game. The negative game script also could exist there for high volume again from Mike White in Minnesota. So Garrett Wilson's number one receiver, 53.5. Again, like Kirk at 60.5. The top targets for their quarterbacks in very good matchups. I think they can easily surpass those numbers. So more is what we're looking for. How do you like it? Those are our picks here, our 10 picks. Again, you just need to pick 2 to 5 there to play on PrizePicks. And then don't forget about that instant deposit match up to $100 there. So you can deposit 100. They're going to give you 100 for your initial run here at PrizePicks. So you can't beat that. And this is a good time to get in the game with our seasonal fantasy kind of getting to a close here in 2022. Thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Again, programming reminder, we'll be taking Monday off, so we'll push our reactions there and mash it up with our Pickup Tuesday there for waiver wire ahead of Week 14. So do that here, and then we'll be with you here all throughout the holiday season, pushing through in December to get you there to dominate what you're looking for in fantasy football. We're playing seasonal DFS. We got you. That's what we do all week long here. So it's what we do, breakdown to progressive, we call Locked On Fantasy Football, giving the insight you need all the way through Week 18 and into the playoffs and all the good stuff that comes in there. So love it. Thanks so much for joining us. Again, thankful for you to listen. I'm very thankful week after Thanksgiving here and a big week ahead in fantasy football. Good luck in all your action here Sunday and Monday in fantasy football. We'll catch you there for Locked On Fantasy for this weekend. This has been Vinnie Iyer. Have a great weekend. Do everything well, including fantasy football.